this meeting order. The Board of Building Standards and Appeals. Would roll call, please.
Mr. Lipson.
Here.
Mr. Farmer.
Here.
Mr. McKeever.
Here.
Mr. Stride.
Here.
Mr. Stucker.
Here.
One chair. First order of business is the approval of minutes of the last meeting, and on our agenda it says November 28th, but actually the last meeting was December 18th, I think. That's the minutes we have, December 18th, one issue, 303 Galen Street. Which we upheld the order to condemn.
I'll second.
All in favor of that, say yes.
Yes.
Yes. I don't think Mr. Amato was here when we swore in people.
He's an attorney, doesn't get sworn in.
Pardon?
He's an attorney, he doesn't get sworn in.
I get swore at, but I don't get
Now,
sworn in.
let's see here, I think I understand that, okay. All right, well,
Answers to a higher calling.
oh, really?
Do we
Huh.
still need to?
Okay,
But for this meeting, this is a separate meeting that we reconvened, so the other, other witnesses we need to be sworn in.
okay,
Mr. Grove, Mr.
okay, all right, so then, please stand and be sworn in, please.
Anybody prepared to give testimony today, please stand and raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you provide today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
First order of business, we've not met since December last year, so we're supposed to reorganize and elect or nominate a chairman and a chairman pro tem. And before we start that proceeding, I'd just like to interject one thought, that there might be some validity to having someone on this meeting that is in the property maintenance appeals board, because a lot of these properties first come to them and eventually come to us. We have a little history, but I'm just saying, after that, I'll open the floor with the nomination.
I nominate Harry Lipscomb.
That didn't work. Okay.
I second.
No sale.
Okay. Yeah, I guess not. I never was good on sailing. Okay, that's been Rodney and Bill seconded. Also at the same time, we will nominate a chairman pro tem and then vote for
I nominate
approval.
Floyd Farmer. I'll second.
All right, Floyd,
Just lucky, I guess.
I think we are. So
I make a
we've
motion
got-
to close nomination.
Okay,
I'll second it.
thanks, fellas. Appreciate the vote of confidence. We now have nominated myself as chairman and Floyd as chairman pro tem for 2019. Or I guess we should take a roll call. Very good.
Mr. Stride.
Yes.
Mr. Stucker.
Yes.
Mr. McKeever.
Yes.
Mr. Farmer.
Yes.
Okay, takes care of that. Now, one subject on our order of business today, and that is a condemnation order on a property at the 947 East Mansfield Street. We have a packet of basically of a timeline of notifications and some other odds and ends of information. We have a copy of the appeals form written by Mr. Long. Do you have any comments? Landon, next we'll go to Gordon with visual.
Yeah, the majority of this is outside my purview. I would recommend starting with Mr. Grove or Mr. Ratliff in this case.
Okay, all right. You go ahead with Gordon.
Yeah, Mr. Grove had re-inspected, this property was previously subject to property maintenance and violations. Mr. Grove had recently re-inspected, and we'll begin with new pictures.
Yeah. What we're gonna start with, the first thing is the video. I basically had received a complaint from the current occupant indicating that there were quite a few issues going on, and felt that the property was not habitable. And so basically the occupant agreed to sign a consent form, which allowed me to do the interior inspection, and that's where we'll start. And the first video you're going to see is the fact that we have the toilet from upstairs into the plumbing. We experienced leakage in the apartment itself, so we'll start with that. I'm sorry, I did bring up the ones. Apologize. This is the first video. This is on the first floor level of the second floor apartment. And if you watch this section of the plumbing here, you'll see leakage from the first time the toilet was flushed. It appeared the lines were probably fairly dry at that point, so you only saw a smaller amount of leakage. But here in a few seconds, you'll see a second leakage after the toilet was flushed, approximately 30 seconds later, and the leakage was far worse. As you can see directly below, there's some type of catch basin down here being used cooler, and it had approximately two inches or more of black water in it. The second video we'll see is for the kitchen, or I'm sorry, for the bathroom sink upstairs as well, which also goes into that plumbing. You won't see as much leakage, but there was some leakage as well. That plumbing runs from over here, comes this way, comes over, and into the same area where the black water was. And as you can see, there's a little bit of drippage yet. And when they did open the same up, we experienced some more leakage over there. The rest are all pictures that I took of a variety of things that we saw that we thought were some problems, continuing problems, or problems that we had from the previous year and starting all over again. So if we do them, I'll try to explain them with the pictures as they come up. This one is the 5-gallon bucket that was directly underneath the piping that was for the bathroom sink upstairs. And apparently it's been doing this for quite a while because there were several inches of water in the bucket, and as you can see, the floor is rectified. This is the first floor. Previously there was a lot of fire load in here. As you notice, there's no drywall, no type of fire protection to stop any type of fire that might happen on the first floor. And with occupants on the second floor is a major concern. We actually had this cleaned out the last time around, but now it's really full again. Again, we show some pictures of some of the items that are in the first floor area. Just appears like it's being used for storage area rather than residential. And also to show the fact that there's no fire separation whatsoever between the first and second floors. A 2-hour fire separation of the ceiling level for walls. Again, this shows there's more storage being done on the first floor. As you can see here, there's just some plain pieces of construction board, garden board of some type. This is actually the stairway that goes to the upstairs apartment for the second floor. This opens out into the outside area. This would be the primary, or probably the only way to escape from the second floor for the occupants living out there. Normally there's a two-hour fire separation on any type of stairway, ceiling, and walls. These are more pictures of the first floor, again to show more fire load and things are going on. This is the pool you saw a little bit ago where the black water was being caught. So I mean, it's obviously this has been going on for quite a while. As you see, this floor is somewhat saturated. It's been a known problem. Again, some more pictures show the first floor fire load as well as no type of fire protection or fire separation of the walls. This is the door that goes out to the south exit off the first floor. As you can see, the door itself is in pretty poor condition. Probably, from what I can see, it indicated maybe even securable to keep anybody out from the first floor underneath the occupants of the second floor. Again, some more pictures show that the first floor continues to be open. This will allow fire to easily extend and quickly extend into the second floor area where occupants would be right on the second floor apartment. This is a picture of the different type of plywood and whatever they were using here to do a separation in the stairs. That wasn't there back in 2018, but it was one of the things that probably started to do with the fire separation of some type, but these are still not the proper materials. This is the kitchen area. I'm not quite sure. The occupants were supposed to be moving in. It does not appear to be in good usable condition. There would be quite a few different problems with the upstairs as far as being able to use the occupied.
Or is that on, that's on the second floor, the outlet area?
This is on the second floor, yes, sir.
Okay.
This is the bathroom area up above. As you can see, there's been a lot of problems with issues before. The floor is discolored, indicating a lot of leakage. As we also saw this, the piping down below. Actually, the heater wood has been placed under the toilet. In my opinion, is not the way things should be done. And because of discoloration of the wood and stuff, I'm not sure what the condition it's in as far as stability. This is some of the plumbing down. This is actually the bathroom as well on the second floor. It appears that this is probably where the washer and dryer would go. Again, in looking at some of the floor area and stuff, I have concerns that the weight factors and stuff that might go on this. This is one of the rooms that the occupants indicated to me that just prior to moving in, it appeared that there were a lot of possibly dog feces and things on the floor. It appears that somebody did come in and tried to remove them or scrape the floor. The odor in the upstairs itself that I witnessed that day was pretty bad. And when I told the occupants I probably would not stay in here very long because the way it was just, in my opinion, that's what I was smelling. And they indicated it was far worse a couple days ago when we first viewed the apartment. This is some more area on the floor that appeared to be the same thing, probably been scraped and either a grinder or sander or something like that was used on the floor to try to remove some of it. The spotting that you see on the baseboard appeared that it could have been dog feces. In my opinion, it's something more like a diarrhea type situation. and just with the odor of the apartment itself. Again, another kind of overhead of the toilet area, as you can see, the condition of the floor, my concerns as far as weight factors and things up here, and even the condition of the floor, we also call for. Here we have some electrical violations. As you see, there's no cover plate on the light switch area here, no bulbs of any type or even in the light bars around the wall. This is the top of the stairs as far as at the second floor level for the apartment. I asked, when I looked at the doors, and the door's not even usable. As you can see, it's basically been knocked off the hinges. The occupants indicated that the property owner, they came into a rental agreement, and he didn't have a key for it at the time, and so, according to the occupants, they were just told to go ahead and get in, whatever it takes to get in. And it appears to me that they were forced to go in both door and do it. So at this time, the apartment wasn't secure. Based on all the things that I took a look at, I felt I should discuss this with the law director, and I came to the conclusion that I felt that the final notice or condemnation order should be issued on the property.
Anything you?
Oh, we'd like to ask Mr. Grove some questions, if you don't mind.
Go right ahead.
All right, Mr. Grove, before we get started on this, it's my understanding that the city was actively involved in this property probably 6 months ago or less, and including the fact that there was several people that were living in the property that had to be gotten out of before work could be done. Is that accurate?
As far as getting out, there were occupants that were living there. There had been several responses by the local fire department involving an electrical short. I would have to go back and look a little farther on that.
All right.
But,
Based upon that, what you were aware of was a short. Obviously, what was told at the time was you did not want people occupying that building. Would you say that's accurate?
Did I say that?
Well, the city, as far as
Would you state your question if you don't know?
yeah, I'm asking is as the Property Grove maintenance officer, was it basically your understanding that was going to only be that the upstairs was only going to be minimally kept open and downstairs was going to be reconstructed? Is that what you understood?
Originally, I was told that the apartment was going to be rented upstairs, and eventually that the individuals, I think that you're talking about, 4 individuals, would eventually have the entire structure as probably, I guess you would say, one family
All right.
home.
Now, isn't it also true that during the time that we were working, that was being worked on, and you were inspecting, we've also had various contractors in there, like electrical, that went in and made sure everything was workable at that point?
There were a couple contractors who did come in, and we made some repairs to the furnace, also supposedly to the electrical, which I never did get to do.
Okay. Now, the last question I would make is, at this point, you agree that the house needed some maintenance before it would be occupied, is that correct?
In my opinion, since there are no separations between the first and second floor, there are some grave concerns because of the fact that since it was supposed to be used as a residential structure, it appears now there could be a mixed use there of storage and residential.
Right. Now, did these individuals that you talked to provide you any proof that they actually were occupying that structure properly?
Are we talking about the first people? Or
No, the second people, the group that made the complaint.
They made contact with me. I then asked, talked to the law director about it, and we made direct contact with them and had a conference call in the office, in which at that time they indicated that they were the occupants.
All right, do you have any proof as far as a written lease that they provided you, or anything that was an agreement, written agreement between the landlord and them?
No, I do not.
Okay. Now, if in fact that house was being repaired and fixed, you agree that the house has availability of being fixed at this point? If it was not being occupied?
I would say that if there were a lot of corrections made, depending on what it's going to cost them and everything, yeah, that would be up to the owner to decide.
Okay. Have you provided the owner a list of discrepancies that you feel need to be repaired?
The first time or second time?
Either times.
Yes, the first time around, yes.
How about this time?
This time, Mr. Long did come into the office, we discussed things on the property. I do not believe that I actually gave him anything in writing as the direct violations, but we did discuss pretty much everything that we're talking about here that you're seeing in the pictures.
You acknowledge, though, that by issuing the order of condemnation, you have prevented him from doing any work to try to fix this back up. Is that correct?
I do not believe that's correct, no.
All right. So Mr. Long could have gone in and continued making repairs on the property as far as you were concerned.
I think as long as we took a look at the property and it was also discussed with the law director, if we could come to an agreement that the things would be fixed properly and the way they should be taken care of, that final notice could be removed. We did that last year.
Okay. So that's where we're at right now, is what you're saying.
At this point, I would say that until the property is completely fixed right and take care of the problems, and that would mean making sure that it's livable,
Okay.
that's a possibility.
Nothing further with Mr. Gordon. Further. I'll be calling Mr. Long and if that would be all right with you.
Yep.
All right. Kim, you were previously sworn in. Can you tell me about these people that were the second group that have talked to the city, and what was your understanding of what they were there for?
I made it very clear to them, the first thing had to be done was the remodeling had to be done to make sure that I was not going to have a problem with the city. Because obviously I have history here with the group, and this is not my first day doing this. And so what I didn't want to do is exactly what happened. You know, I had people that wanted a place, they said they'd do the work. He was a drywaller, sheet flip comes before. You know, I did my best to vet these people that they could do what I consider just normal work. Now, we're talking about the upstairs. We're not talking about the downstairs, because the downstairs is not part of the equation right now. And it is a single-family home. Originally, it was a single-family home 120 years ago. Over the years, it had been converted to a duplex way before me. And when I bought the home, it had sat vacant for over 2 years, and so it couldn't be a duplex anymore. It had to be a single-family home. So Mr. Rostash came out when I first bought it and instructed me to put this barrier up for that staircase. So that way the work being done downstairs would have no effect on the people living upstairs. It's been lived in for approximately the last 3 years. Is it in perfect condition? No, it's not. The people that just got evicted, left it in rough shape. That's the reason why I'm getting somebody to remodel it before they moved in. They were crystal clear. What happened is they were more than glad to take it. They walked the house. They liked the house. We can do all this work. Oh yeah, this will be great. We'll get it done in a week or two. No big deal. And then 3 days later, they called me, oh, we got to meet. Okay, let's go, we'll meet. So I met with them. Oh, we're not gonna do all, oh, there's so much more work than what we thought. And the bottom line is they just got lazy. That's fine, because nothing changed. Then they start crying about all the stuff that is obviously wrong with the home. They start crying about that they couldn't do that work. We clean up, paint, a little bit of drywall, some flooring. You know, those are, we're not building a house here. The electrical was just passed, you know, by my electrician in the city back in March. And I know Gordon has a lot of houses he's looking at, but he and I walked that house in early March to get final approval so I get the thing released from condemnation, which include the electrical. We went down to the basement, I showed him that, he's got pictures in his file, and I don't expect him to know, keep track of my houses with 100 other ones he's working on. But just to clarify this, that yes, he came out there, because I could not have gotten a release then if he hadn't been out there.
All right, now Ken, you've heard his concerns about the flooring that he's discussed, where he thinks the flooring is too weak. What is your view when you've seen that, where you've been up and down that floor?
I think it probably needs remodeled. That's the reason why I had people scheduled to do the remodeling. There's obviously defects to that home. My home does not look like that. Okay, I'll be the first to admit. But there's nobody living there either. They're supposed to be in there working, okay? And they chose not to. And then what they did 10 seconds later, after they called the police, and they were not able to shake me down to give them their money back, then they decided, well, we'll just call the city. Well, that's why we're here. You know, instead of going through the civil process, which is what the Lieutenant Walker downstairs said they should do, they decided to call the city because they think it's quicker and it's going to have more effect on me.
All right. Now, you have actually looked at the leakage that they're talking about in the drain that's up there.
Yes.
What do you believe that is?
It's here one of two things. What you have is you have 4-inch cast iron pipe, which is in those pictures, okay, and you have like 1.5 inch PVC where part of that plumbing's been upgraded, and where those two meet, it could be a bad seal. The cast iron there could have a crack in it, cast iron cracks. But I've not had, once again, the remodelers to look at that, because I knew there was a drip. I was never in the home when somebody was upstairs flushing the toilet and saw what we saw in the video. That surprised me too. But I do know I do see drips, okay? That's the reason why I put 2 buckets there, and that's why those buckets have 1 inch or 2 of water in them. They're not overflowing, they're not, there's not like raw sewage going through there. And I took pictures of those 2 buckets to show you that it's actually clear water. Now, I know if somebody uses the bathroom, it's probably gonna be a little different story, but what I find in these two buckets that I've got pictures on my phone to show you is not raw sewage, okay? But even if it was, it's being remodeled. I mean, the best analogy I can give you, if we're gonna have an omelet, we gotta break some eggs. And that's where I'm in this process. And so, once again, nobody was gonna move in that home because I know that 1 millisecond later, somebody called the city, they come out there in a red shiny truck, and we'd have all this. I don't need all that. I mean, I know what work needs done, and that's why nobody's moving in there.
Did you authorize these people who you hired to put all that junk in the ground floor of the property?
Oh, no. There's a mix of, you probably saw my table saw in there, you saw bathtubs, you saw different building materials, and there's some clutter from the people that just moved out. They moved out, and I know from having rentals for a number of years that if I take all that stuff that they left and take it to the landfill, an hour later they're gonna say, oh, I have this brand new 90-inch flat screen TV, where's it at? Okay, that's why I choose to keep it for a reasonable amount of time to let somebody figure out if they're gonna come back get it or not. Now, at some point I gotta get rid of it, okay, but they moved out about 45 days ago, okay, and this new group they're going to do this remodeling, I met them about 10 days ago, so it was only there for about 30 days. I'm not using the space, it's not being occupied, it's not, we're working on the upstairs first, so it wasn't going to be in the way yet, to do the remodeling. At the time when they got the upstairs repaired for their family to move in, and we got ready to start the downstairs, and that's a whole different matter. Now it's time to go to landfill. But I was okay on time. There was nothing pressing about having that stuff down there.
What would you like this board to do today?
I'd like to release the condemnation, because I wasn't even given 30 days to do any repairs. You know, my understanding is the way this process is supposed to work, there's an issue with the house. And if there is, then they send me a letter, give me a very clear list, because between Judge Ludeholt and Magistrate O'Leary, the group was told very clearly that they're supposed to provide a punch list before we go to court. Okay, well, I can go do a lot of work over there, and then it won't suit anybody, because that wasn't on, there's no list to work off of.
All right, right now, you have a current list of what's wrong with the property.
No, I do not.
You had a list at some point in time. You
I
mentioned there was one back when the first, this was addressed earlier,
last year.
was it last
Yeah,
year? I don't know.
that work was all done.
Okay,
We-
that's
we-
all, okay.
In fairness, when this house, when there was one outlet had smoked in one of the bedrooms. Fire department was called, they came out, they condemned the home. Now, this is all old news, and I got the house back, okay? But in my opinion, the fire department's probably out every day doing fires, and I question how many homes are being condemned because of that. But mine was, okay? It's called selective enforcement, okay? I had one outlet that was smoked. My electrician came out the very next morning, made the repair to make it safe, and then we go from there. And then, you know, Mr. Gordon, Mr. Ratliff, and I sat downstairs in Mr. Gordon's office, and we worked out a punch list of the things he wanted done. They wanted the furnace looked at, they wanted the electrical looked at, and they wanted the plumbing looked at by licensed people. More than glad to do the work, did the work, you know, the contractors all signed off that the work was done correctly. These guys received copies of all that information. You know, then Gordon came out after all the work was done, you know, to check himself, which I'm good, but he came out approximately March 2nd. That's when this thing finally, it passed, okay? And so, you know, like I said, the people moved out, and I wish tenants weren't tough on my places, but they are. And so a lot of the work that you see is not work that was there when they moved in, but when they move out, it's a whole different matter, okay? But the people that were supposed to do the work, I'm okay if they don't want to do the work, but it's not, you know, it's one thing if they don't want to do the work, but it's not fair to me to have you call it the city, you know, to be their agent. And that's what this is. You know, there's a process. It's called civil court. If they have an issue with me, take me to court. That's.
Mr. Long,
Yes.
are you familiar with the International Property Maintenance Code?
Yes, I am.
I would suggest that you follow this as the list of things that you need to do to take care of your property. This has everything in it. It specifies how a property should be maintained.
I'll let my attorney address that.
Basically, we have had this discussion with the judge. The judge has told us, and both judges, by the way, the municipal court and the common police court judge, that specifically more specifics, not just generally what the code states, but it has to break down to what is there. So we identify, and then you can tell the person that he hasn't completed it because it was right there. The code there says very general, very good, but doesn't state specifics, and that's the problem we got in there. Because you give a person the Encyclopedia Britannica, and they don't know what they have to do to get it done.
According to what you're saying, then, is that we should have somebody out there to inspect the property every time somebody moves in or out to make sure that it's up to code for the next person to move in.
Well, if you did have that type of, I would tell you that anytime what was done at one point was that when the state of Ohio was the regulatory agent for the city, was that you had to have anytime you did work, you had to have the state had to basically sign off on certain level of repairs or work that was done. However, right now, Gordon is very good in the fire department, but he doesn't have any expertise in plumbing or electric. And so now Gordon doesn't have the skills to know whether or not those things are done. Now, as to whether or not this leak was there when Gordon and Mr. Ratliff agreed in March was done, I don't know. I can't tell you that because I hadn't gone in there myself and looked at it, and I can't tell you what it was like. My client says when he was there, he didn't see this leak until after everything was resolved. And keep in mind, during that period of time, you maintained, even though there was discussion about possibly condemning the property, they maintained these two couples in that property during that entire time. Since they left, the idea was to try to fix this place up to then be able to rent it out to actually occupy this property. These people didn't or weren't supposed to be occupying the property. And so what was supposed to be happening is work that was to be done never got done because, in effect, as soon as the state or the city gives my client a condemnation order, I tell him to stop work until I can come in for you and say, okay, what is it you want us to do specifically? Giving me the code does not tell me specifically because I'm not sure. And what part of the problem is that the reason the judge and the magistrate in those courts have said these things is that they don't want to then keep adding things down the road. They want to say, okay, if this is the work that's done, then we'll get those work done and it'll be over. Rather than say, oh, well, this work needs to be done. Oh, we want to add this thing to the work. Oh, we want to add this thing to the work. So the problem is that we're trying to, I understand, Mr. Ratliff did a condemnation order that said it just doesn't work. I'm saying is we need a more specific order saying what specifically needs to be done. If you say repair the leak, okay. You want to say put up the drywall in those property that before it can be occupied, okay. I had never heard up to this point that the wood siding that was used on the plywood going up the stairs was not regulation for fire. That was come out from Rostash told my client to do that. I understand that a permanent solution, if we were permanently using that obstacle, would have been fire-rated drywall to a certain extent, but we all know this is a one-family dwelling that's going to have the entire dwelling basically open at some point as an occupied dwelling, as a one-family dwelling, not as a two-family dwelling, because basically that's no longer allowed under the zoning issue. So, what you've got here is you have a house that was not to be occupied until the work was done. The people may or may not have had authorization to start work, but they sure the heck didn't have authorization to be living there. And so now the problem has come that we have this issue where we agree the house was not ready for occupancy, but these people basically were trying to do something. Now, as you know, there's no furniture or food through that house when the pictures were taken. That's because nobody moved their stuff into these two people who are claiming they're residing there were not living there. They didn't have their furniture, they did not have their food in there, and they didn't have their belongings in there. Now, yes, I would not want to move in. If I had to, I would be doing some serious work on it before I decided to move my family in there. But as a practical matter, he has to do the work because he has to, in order to rent that place, in order to get the money he needs to rent it for a full family dwelling, he's going to have to go in and do both upstairs and downstairs at some point. It was because of the way that the city and they had agreed to maintain the upstairs temporarily until the downstairs could be worked on, that was the understanding between Mr. Long as well as Mr. Grove. Was my understanding was they let the downstairs be unoccupied so that work could be started to be done on it. But it was my understanding that was part of the agreement out of the earlier in the year, not something that came out recently. Now,
Excuse me, just time out a minute.
Yeah,
Was the work that was supposed to be done, that was cited earlier, was that work completed?
Mr. Chair, if I could, I mean, we've been going on with arguments for a while now. I would like the opportunity to ask Mr. Long some questions.
Right ahead.
Right, thank you. Mr. Long, the remodelers that were involved in this case, how did you meet them?
At Craigslist ad,
And Craigslist ad for what?
for people to do remodeling on a home in exchange for future rent.
Okay. And they were going to do the remodeling for you?
Yes.
And how much were you going to pay them to do the remodeling?
I just said they were going to be for future rent.
Okay. Did they pay you?
Yes, they did.
How much did they pay you?
We paid for approximately $900. I don't know the exact figure, but around $900 all year. It was supposed to be rent and deposit, and I take that as a security, so I'm working with people that are motivated.
So they paid you rent and deposit for that property?
That's correct. Knowing they couldn't move in until after it was remodeled. So first of all, suit them, and then second of all, suit me, so it would suit the city.
Do you have a lease agreement to that effect?
No, I do not.
Do you have a remodel or a construction contract?
No, we do not.
The toilet or the leak, that it does appear to be when you flush the toilet, that water leaks.
Yes, sir.
And your contention is that's clear water.
It is clear water. We go out there right now, and I'll show you how clear that water is.
Well,
I've got
if
pictures on my phone. I can show you.
If someone used that toilet, someone defecated in that toilet, would that still be clear water coming through?
I just brought that up.
Okay, I'm just asking.
No,
If someone defecated in that
We're
toilet,
going backwards.
no, we're not. If someone defecated in that toilet, would that be clear water that came out of that pipe?
No, I addressed
Okay,
the
so
board with that.
with the toilet that leaks into the first floor, in your opinion, is that property fit for human habitation at this point in time?
No, it is not being
Okay.
inhabited. It's not being inhabited.
That's all I asked. Now, Gordon, if you could get the letter from 2018. Now, the property that was on the first floor, you mentioned you had some things stored there, bathtubs, saw, some other things.
Yeah, there's building materials there, there's,
And,
screws.
and what is those building materials that you put there?
Yes,
For use in this property or other properties?
for a combination of both.
Okay, for commercial use. Sir, if you could read number 5 for me. This is a letter from October 23rd, 2018, that we agreed for completion by December 1st, 2018. Those are your initials, correct? If you could scroll up as well.
Yeah, those are my initials.
And that's your signature?
Yes, it is.
And could you read number 5 for me, sir?
Downstairs is empty of all trash and debris.
Now, that was a condition to release it from the last time it was in this position, correct?
There's no trash and there's no debris.
I'll defer to the pictures as to whether or not there's trash and debris. I have no further questions. I will submit to the board, Mr. Long has admitted the house is not fit for human habitation. We are here in a condemnation order. Condemnation is based on the fact that this house is not fit for human habitation. We're collecting, by his own admission, rent and security deposits for this property. Now, there's been a lot of talk about the International Property Maintenance Code and property maintenance issues and those things, and whether or not those should be spelled out. That's not what we have here. We do not have property maintenance violations. We have a condemnation order based on a house that is not fit for human habitation, that he admits himself, this house is not fit for human habitation. Now, if he wants to repair this and get it to the place where it's fit for human habitation, that's fine. We can put together a timetable, we can get it set for that, we can get it repaired, and we can have it fit for human habitation. I'm not in the market to tear down all the houses in the city of Bucyrus. We need them. We need places for people to live, we need places for people to rent. We don't need places where people are paying $900 for the privilege of fixing that place up. This place is not fit for human habitation. The condemnation order should be upheld, and we should either have an agreement where this place is fixed, or this place is condemned within the time frames that this board has set. Now, I will challenge this board that agreeing to allowing this property to be fixed and repaired is something that should be taken very strong concern due to the history, the credibility, and the likelihood that there'll be more victims of this type of activity. I have nothing for it.
Well, I have a couple questions, which may be kind of after the fact, but if there was no lease agreement or no construction agreement, and these people don't fix it up, how would they know what they were supposed to do?
We met on a Sunday night at around 9 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah.
After we walked the house and we talked, and I told what all had to be done, and they agreed to this and that. And I said, I will be back in town on Tuesday, and we'll all this together. And they bobbed their heads up and down and said, yeah, that's all fine. We were 3 consenting adults that had an agreement, okay?
A verbal agreement.
We paid their money, okay? And they have a hard copy
I
of that.
think I also heard you say, on the side of this particular, that you agreed to let them move in, and they agreed to do work while they were living there in exchange for.
No, sir, I never said that.
Yes, you did say that.
No, I did not.
Yes, you did.
You go back and look at the minutes. Okay, sir, you can chuck all you want. I know that I can't move people in this home.
I'm not
Or any
chuckling, I'm
home.
pretty perturbed, actually.
Let me ask a question here. On this particular handout that we had about timeline and things going on, you're listed as a property owner, but also a fair price realty is listed as a property owner.
Yeah, I can address that, and Mr. Meyer and I addressed that earlier. There was the county auditor still lists Fair Price Realty as the owner of record. However, there is a legal and binding land contract agreement that was drawn up by another attorney between Mr. Long and Fair Price Realty. Under that land contract agreement, Mr. Meyer and I would both agree and stipulate to this body that Mr. Long is the effective owner of that property at this time.
Okay. I'm afraid we get into all this stuff and then there'll be another party.
No. The Fair Price Realty and the owner of Fair Price Realty was served and was notified. We had met with him. He's aware, but because of the land contract, Mr. Long is the owner of the property.
We had a good working relationship. The last time this house was condemned, and it passed back in March of this year, 5 months ago, or whatever amount of time that was. And so my hope was that to come here, have the same thing happen, same thing happen again, okay? I didn't cause any grief here. I legitimately had people that want to do the work and then move in afterwards. There's no furniture in there. Those pictures, that stuff that's on that kitchen countertop, that's all theirs. She bought like brand new pictures to hang on the wall, and I'm thinking, you haven't even cleaned or painted yet. So she definitely was leaning forward on, that kind of little fluffy stuff. But there's no furniture, there's no food, there's no nothing, so there's nobody living in that home.
So why would they pay rent if they're not living there?
Because I require it, if they're gonna do business with me, I have to see a commitment from them.
Okay.
Because I'll have contractors tell me all day long they're gonna show up on Tuesday, start work, and then all of a sudden, a week from Tuesday, they're nowhere. I don't do that.
Do you have any evidence that these people are qualified to do construction work?
Yeah, they don't.
Oh, they don't.
Are they approved contractors in the city?
They're able to do work.
Are they approved, are they on the approved contractor list in the city?
Is there in the city?
Yes.
Or where? I'm gonna take a guess. I probably
But, and Mr. Chair, my next point was I was going to ask Mr. Hill 2 questions. One, whether or not these individuals were registered as contractors in the city, which you got to that point. And the second was whether or not commercial storage was permitted in that zoning district and as a use for that residence.
If that is what you designated as, I would say that no, it's not. That is regard to the zoning district. Commercial uses are not permitted in that district. I don't believe they're registered. I'd have to see some kind of company name, contractor name, whatever the case may be. If they were able to provide a certificate of liability insurance, a certificate of workers' comp, and fill out the registration with their income tax department, then they could go about that, but I doubt that to be the case.
Well, I think personally, I would be more apt to, your argument, if you had a contract of some kind, I don't care if it's on a piece of yellow tablet?
Yes, sir.
But the person's,
We
the
were supposed-
amounts, the da-da-da, rather, okay, I had a handshake agreement with what,
We were
whoever.
supposed to meet 2 days later. Like I said, we didn't finish
Well,
look at the
that
home
was
until
big.
9 o'clock on a Sunday night. Everybody had to go home. I said, I'll be back here 2 days. We'll put this all together in writing because I want to make sure they were crystal clear what all we were doing. Yeah, 3 bags full. And then in the meantime, they changed it.
You don't have that kind of.
No, that's a lick on me. I agree.
So you did state that you were exchanging labor, repairing, making the repairs in exchange for rent,
Future rent.
future rent. But yet you charge them in advance for rent.
Yeah, it's a deposit.
And,
And rent.
In addition to an exchange for the work to be done.
Right, the agreement was, and it's a stair step. They pay X $200 to start with.
Prescribed list of work.
Please?
Unprescribed list of work.
There's no clue here. I'm sorry. I know you're fishing here, but
No,
it's
I'm not fishing,
Okay.
I'm making a mistake.
Okay, I am.
Did we have the same thing happen on Why are we putting up with this? Why won't you just hire somebody to contract to get the place fixed? Instead of hiring somebody off of Craigslist who is not qualified, who is not a contractor, get somebody to actually do the work. If you can get us a contract with a contractor, and they say they will get it done in X amount of time, I don't have a qualm about that. But with this, I'm against it. I'm gonna, if they wanna go with the condemnation, they got my vote. I'm tired of this, you're wasting my time. We've been at this for almost an hour now. You did this before. You're not getting anything fixed. You tried people, I don't even know what to believe anymore. I'm tired of this, and I think we need to move on, one way or the other.
Folks, we have, Wiley's house was approved, it was in fact properly approved. It was approved by the court as well as the city.
Yeah, because we didn't have what we stated before. Because it's random, it's not specific enough. Well,
I have to
guess
deal with-
what, we will make sure you have something in due time.
Okay.
Because I'm tired of this, I understand you found a loophole. Fine.
My position to the board would be this house as it sits is unfit for human habitation. We have that admission. I would request that the board make a motion to uphold condemnation order. Can we proceed?
Well, my comment is regardless of what's in that or what's in our building code, it comes down to point of common distance, it's where you don't put people to work. Period.
I agree.
Especially when it's small children. That's when I get a little riled up.
I make a motion to uphold the condemnation.
Okay. Well, second it. I think you've had enough discussion, let's have a roll call.
Mr. McKeever?
Yes.
Mr. Stucker?
Yes.
Mr. Farmer?
Yes.
Mr. Scribe?
Yes.
Vote is to uphold the condemnation and proceed accordingly.
Do we give me a written order?
Yeah.
Just stay there.
I assume we have no other issues at this, oh, I have not seen anything or heard anything about a couple other properties that we considered here, the 217 East Mansfield and 303 Galen, West Galen. Both of those, where are they at?
Mr. Stucker is correct. Those have both been donated by, I believe they might have been purchased, but they're both in possession of Crawford County Land Bank now, so they will be 4 down, 5
All
left.
right, okay, great. Okay.
Gaylord Street.
All right,
Yeah,
yeah, go talk.
yeah, and West Mansfield.
Yeah, and the Mary Street.
Yes, 205 East Marion is also.
Yeah, across from her.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, those all were turned over to the
Great,
land.
okay. Okay, great. Anything else? Nothing? Okay. Motion to adjourn. Second. Okay. Say yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Adjourned at 5:44.